Jessie. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Monique Gomez joining us, and she's going to talk with us about getting in the body and some empathy and compassion and some gratitude. We've got all sorts of great topics to chat with her about. But Monique Gomez is an educator and coach of sex, eroticism, spirituality, and self-love. All good, juicy things there. She's an embodiment enthusiast with over a decade of teaching movement and body work. And Monique knows truth is found in the body and teaches it as the foundation of true erotic expression. So, you know, the name of this series, Endure and Transform, it's really about kind of making it through this. And one of my biggest hangups is when my heart starts to hurt for what's happening and kind of feeling helpless, you know, and being like, what can I do? And I'm like, I don't have a nonprofit that's like giving meals to kids. And, you know, I'm not doing all these grand things. Like, I think for us, it's like, how do we share that compassion and express our empathy in ways that are healthy? Because I feel like, you know, us getting bummed out and sad, like that's not going to help. Right. But I'm curious, Monique, I would love to talk to you about like, how do you see like us navigating, you know, this through the pandemic? Like, how do we touch into that empathy, or how do we touch into compassion, especially, you know, when we can't connect with our community? Like, what's that like for you? And what have you like expressed to clients for that?
Yeah. So this is such an amazing time to kind of be talking about this, because I think everyone is feeling their empathetic side. Like we're sensing, we're feeling so much right now, right? Because we don't have the distractions of everyday life, really. And so we've kind of come into this halt, like the pause. And in that, we're feeling all of the more denser energies, the fear, the sadness, the grief, you know, those things. So one thing I always think and tell people is to feel those things. I think often we try to run. We try to run from them. It's not that we have to get stuck in them. So there's a difference, right? Between feeling them, like getting like stuck in the little whirlpool of them. And then because we also want to, like, the other opposite end is like pretending they don't exist. And they're still existing, right? So it's like where you can find your grounding is, first of all, feel the sadness, feel the grief within yourself, like recognize that it's a real thing, I think is really important. Like it's okay to feel these things. And then find compassion for yourself. Like, I'm okay. Like, I'm good. Like,
that's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing you can do. Because when you find your self-compassion, like when you can give yourself that kind of space, then what starts happening is you radiate naturally out into the world with that. Right?
That's so true. You can't love anyone else if you don't love yourself, or do anything for anyone else if you don't do it for yourself first. And I grew up with this, you know, like, be humble, don't be selfish mentality. And so I've had to like undo that. Like, it's selfish to love myself, or it's selfish to like have compassion for myself.
Girl.
But you're right. You can't do it for other people if you're not doing it for yourself. It's like the oxygen mask theory. Like, I got to put that oxygen mask on first before I can, you know, put it on my kid or save anyone else.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's huge. And I think, you know, I think you tapped on that, like such a huge cultural idea and belief that we just subconsciously take on is like, oh, it's selfish. Like, oh, we're in a pandemic. We need to reach out and help somebody. And it's like, again, I think that that's beautiful. I mean, we all help each other, and there is like such coming together. But I always say, like, you have to touch into yourself first before you reach out that hand. At least have the other hand on your heart or somewhere on you.
That's such a beautiful image. Like, I love it.
Because you need to feel the groundedness. You need to feel that compassion. And then you can, you know, think if everyone did that, and everyone was just like, everyone could hold everybody's hand, you know, through a whole like chain, but also connected to self. And like, yeah, so unwinding the idea that it's selfish or bad or wrong,
Mm-hmm.
to give yourself that little bit of compassion before giving it, or at the same time as giving it, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wild. It's definitely something like, yeah, there's a lot of work in that. But I think too, right now, more than ever, we're seeing how connected we really are. Even like with not
Yes.
actually physically being able to be connected,
Mhm.
but like the fact that this is a global scale, or the fact that like pretty much everyone is experiencing, some version of this, and it's different. Like, who's not affected by this?
Exactly.
Nobody. And
Everybody.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like the fact that we are connected in that way, like that changes our ability to have compassion, or, to be able
Mhm.
to see someone in
Mhm.
their struggle. It's like we can really witness that, I think,
Mhm.
because we're going through it too. And I think it's interesting, and tell me this, like, as a coach or a therapist, like when you're experiencing like your own situation, like you're going through this too, and then you're also helping other people, that's got to
Yeah.
be kind of weird, right? You're like, well,
Well,
I'm
that's
dealing with it, so are
yeah.
you. I'm supposed to have all the answers. What's that like,
Yeah.
as this
Well,
has.
and I think that's what's such a good gift in this work is
Mhm.
I've had to really know what work on myself in the sense of giving myself time
Yeah.
to come in, to grieve, to feel the suffering, to feel like the pain in the world right now, the
Yeah.
fear. Like I've
Yeah.
had to feel it all
Uh-huh.
at my own time, because then I'm like, oh, I can find that compassion, and then I can relate to the next person, and I can see them, and I can be like, I get it, because I really do. We're all, like you said, we're
Yeah.
all in this on
Yeah.
some level.
It's so
And
wild.
so when you can see it for yourself, then you see it in the others,
Yeah,
and then you can like really come from heart
I love
in
that.
that way.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. It's so true. And it really, I mean, I just keep coming back to that, like your hand on a heart and reaching out to
Yeah.
someone. Like oh, it's such a beautiful visual. Um, I want to know, this is kind of a tangent, but like when you talk about like feeling your feelings and
Mhm.
feeling, that fear and stuff, like how do you do that? And I've seen a lot of like funny memes too about like feeling your feelings. And I kind of joke about it a lot because it's like, I'm feeling my feel, like that's what I say to like my partner when I'm feeling my feelings today, and that's like my red flag for like everything's a little crazy right now. Like
Totally.
there's a lot of emotions riding high, but like how do you do that? Like how do you do that gracefully? I think we're gonna have a little sidebar here about
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah.
I want to know.
So what I found for me, and um okay, because I was the person who I was like, oh no, feelings don't exist. That's
Me too.
funny.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we're
I'm
just
like,
not gonna we're
I'm
just not
stone
gonna do
cold. I
that.
got this. Yeah,
Yeah. Like I'm fine. This is great.
exactly.
Life is amazing.
All lies.
And so it was really scary for me to have this idea, right? And it's
Yeah,
so, in a sense, very cliche, like feel your feelings.
yeah.
It's like, always go back to go into your body, like feel the sensation.
Uh-huh.
So when you're in a feeling, notice, like what can help is if you notice where it is in your body, like track it,
Mm.
like, oh, like I'm so sad, it's in my chest. It's
Yeah.
in my chest. Oh my gosh, it's in my chest, right? I'm
Uh-huh.
feeling it in my chest. So
Yeah.
you can, that's like, again, awareness shines the light on the feeling. The
Uh-huh.
feeling can move through. You can be in your body in the feeling,
Ah,
and then remembering that the feeling, its job is to move through. It's not
yeah.
going to get stuck.
Yeah.
It's going to move.
Yeah.
And I think that helps me a lot, is remembering that emotions and feelings are not, they don't have to stay with you, and they're going to come up, and they're part of our human experience. So it's not like you'll never feel fear again. Like
Yeah.
fear is going to come up for you.
Yeah.
Sadness is going to come up for you.
Yeah.
And like accepting that these feelings are all part of your human experience, then you
Mm-hmm.
have more space to accept them when they come. And then you feel them and you're like, oh, wow. Okay, wow, I'm feeling really sad, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And
I think
like,
for me, just even admitting it or saying it.
yes,
I
I
feel
love that you tell people, like, I'm feeling my feelings today. Oh my God. I always say, I'm like, I'm having an emotional response to this. I need to
yeah.
feel.
Wash out. Yeah.
I know. I'll just hold on because I need to feel something right now.
Yeah. But like what a
Yeah.
beautiful gift to, like, I don't know, like being able to really dive in that. And I've been thinking a lot about that in terms of like kids and like the way
Mhm.
they process this, and like the kiddos I'm around, they'll be like, something, they stub their toe and they're like, I'm mad, and they like feel it, they let it go, and then they walk away and they're like, cool, I'm gonna go get my hot dog, like whatever. I'm like,
I was just having this conversation with
yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like,
why can't we do that? Maybe
because we're taught not to.
acceptable, but we should. How great would it be, like, to be like, I'm really mad right now, like lose your shit, and then be like, I moved it. I felt my feeling, and it passed. Yeah. We'd probably all be a lot healthier if we were acting.
I feel like we would be way healthier, first of all, and a lot more balanced and a lot more trusting of ourselves. Yeah. Because I think, okay, so another thing I think as adults, what we get into is this idea that, as kids, we have acceptance for them to have their feelings.
Yeah.
Somewhere it changes, right? Like over the years, it's like, oh, now you're an adult, like don't buck up, like get it together. We have a lot of these like, like you're an adult now, right?
Yeah.
And so what I've learned is there are times when I have to be an adult and I'm in a situation where I'm feeling something and I can't, and I know, like my mind knows, I cannot necessarily express my anger in that moment because it won't be helpful to anybody or the situation.
Yeah.
So what I do is I tell myself, I feel you, anger. Like I feel this anger, or I like have the awareness of it. And I'm like, I'm going to come back to you. Then when I'm home and I have my own space and I'm in my own thing, I allow that anger to come back up.
Yeah.
And I express it. Or I allow that sadness to come up and I express it however I need to.
Yeah.
And then it helps move it. So there's something about recognizing it, acknowledging it, talking to it and saying, okay, I see you, and then letting it go. And you have to let it go later,
Totally. I feel that. And I think there's something just saying like, I see you. Like that is such a huge step, huge. If you can't process, especially I treat stuff like that like a dog, and I'll be like, I get it. Like, I'm just going to pet your head right now. Like, I'll give you some food and snuggles and brushes later, but like, don't shit on the couch. Like, hey, I have to set like some boundaries. Like, maybe you're not going to do this now. Like, no, you're not allowed on the bed, but you're okay. Go sleep in your dog bed. Like, go lay down.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging it, or, giving it a pet, it's enough to like, if we know it's there, because if you were like, nope, there's no dog here, and it's definitely not standing on my dining room table, like nothing to see here, like that doesn't help anything, So.
And it just builds up, and then over like you have 500 dogs on your table.
Exactly, and those are what happens with feelings you don't feel. There you go. Exactly. You have dogs on the table. I know. Again with the random visuals. It works. It totally works.
People will remember that for sure.
I know. But gosh, there sure is a lot. I love that in like so much of my work. It's always like, wow, just the process of acknowledging something, or just saying that I see you, or yes, I agree. Like, yep, there it is. Like that is such a huge step. And I love like the power in that, or being able to like give ourselves that, like, you know what, you acknowledge that, that's okay. And good on you, for
totally. And acknowledge it. And then one thing that helps, literally move your body with emotions. So that's another thing I think we forget to do. Like you said, you see kids do that all the time. They're like, I'm mad. They're like moving their arms. They're doing something. Yeah. They're like making faces.
Yeah.
We try to like keep ourselves very together and like, okay, I'm going to move my emotions, and like crying's okay. But like, exactly. Okay. It moved. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. But no, like what if like you allowed yourself to actually like shake or move or scream or, like we forget those things. And again, it's so simple.
It really is.
And accepting that we can go into that space, and being in a safe space to where that's okay is really important too.
I scream in my car all the time. And
oh my God.
Is like, honestly though, I like make sure no one's looking. I make sure the windows are up. I make sure I'm not butt dialing someone. Like, I'm nervous, which is weird. But then I like just, 30 seconds of screaming.
Yep.
And literally that is like going to therapy, having a massage, taking a shower, calling a friend, like all in one. 30 seconds.
Yep.
Like that's all it took. I'm also notorious for smashing plates. Like that, that physical, like watching shatter. Like, I love, 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 love the power of something as simple and kinetic as that,
Yeah.
that will just upturn so much emotion for you and move it out. Like the power in that, it's bananas. Like it's just incredible. And again, like I find myself saying this a lot, but like the tools are so simple, and I don't know why we don't do them all the time. Maybe we run out of plates. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I smashed a
No
lot of
more
my
plates in
plates.
the
I had to
world.
start buying plates to smash. Like I have some if you ever need any.
Oh, thank you, honey. We should have a plate smashing party one
Well,
time.
you do. I know. I need to find like the perfect spot that I don't have to clean up. I take my son to the dump every once in a while. I'm like, babe, you want to go smash plates? He's like, yeah. Loves it.
Best.
But I tell him, like, I'm having a hard day. And he's like,
Yeah.
let's go to the dump. So.
And I think that's so beautiful too, even that, being a mother and sharing the feelings with your son and letting it be okay, right? Like that's where it starts, is like, oh, this is okay that you have emotions. I have emotions too. Like, let's go smash plates together.
Yeah. And that's honestly something that I've just come around to. I've also been the mother that's like, I'm fine, everything's good. Like, go play while I go cry in the kitchen. It's been a big deal for me to show him that. And I think that that's, part of having empathy and compassion in these bigger moments is to be like, I'm feeling that too. And I feel where you are. And maybe it's also like, it doesn't have to be fixed. I'm a fixer. Like, so when someone's like, something's wrong, I'm like, cool, let's go figure this out. And it's like, no, that's not really helpful to like tell someone you'll solve their problems, or, it's like, it's okay just to be in that with them. And Jen Antill said that. It was really powerful today. She was like, how do you stay or allow yourself to be uncomfortable as you witness someone else's pain? And I was like, that's gold. Like, how do you do that? Like I'm used to fixing. I'm used to like being like, okay, let's figure this out. But that's not what people need often. And I think that does play along with like letting your kids see your emotions, or letting your friends see your emotions, and then they will let you see theirs in turn. It's like the power in that.
There's an honoring to it too. I always feel like it's so like, when I am able to honor somebody's emotion or honor my own first, and then be like, wow, and I see yours, because you set a precedent for it. Like, you're like, this, because I'm doing it for myself, then you're like, okay, I can let you see it too. And now you can see yours. And it's like living in that space. And and I think when you're super uncomfortable, like, I think what Jen said is amazing, and it is like a nugget of gold. And it's being super uncomfortable. And one thing that I always go into is like, notice your body. Where is it? Like, as you're uncomfortable, notice it. And then you can also always go to your breath. If you're feeling like, holy crap, this is so uncomfortable, I don't know what I'm doing, what starts happening is we get really shallow. Everything starts tensing, and we're like up here. And it's like, whew, drop down. Like, take a breath. Again, so simple.
Totally.
And you can stay uncomfortable. I mean, it might not shift it completely, but it can move. It moves something. Breath is movement. So if you continue to go with that, like,
I love it.
Everything's going to shift,
So true. Oh, that's good. That's pure gold too, girl. Like,
all the gold.
I love it. I love it. Oh, such good talk. Such good stuff. Really wonderful wisdom on empathy and compassion. And gosh, thank you so much for joining and chatting with me. And this is the bomb. And our viewers can find you on Instagram at Monique Gomez, or moniquegomez.com. And that all your information will be below on the website. So people can find you and work with you either as a coach, or if they want a little assistance with some embodiment, you're the gal. It'd be a perfect person to connect with. So thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure chatting with you. And I'm just so thankful for your time and your wisdom. So thank you so much. Appreciate you. Take care. Bye. All right. Welcome back. We are here with Ranier Wood, and today we're going to talk about empathy and compassion. Ranier has worked in the movement realm and is an expert just about the body. This woman knows all about it. And I think, for me in this pandemic, there's been a lot of my heart hurts, it bleeds. It's like, what do I do? And I don't know sometimes like feeling helpless, but like trying to understand like what you have, you know, the power to affect. And I always like go back to one of my favorite Wayne Dyer quotes, which is like, you can't get sick enough to heal one person, or you can't get sad enough to make one person happy. And I think a lot about that, like us kind of bringing our vibration down to like meet someone, but that's not really helping the situation. And so I think about it in this context of like, what can we do to kind of like raise the vibration when this is a hard time? You know, it's difficult and there's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot going on. But I'm curious your thoughts on that, like how you can still continue to like, you know, really, really let that heart feel. And, you know, if we're stuck in quarantine, like, what do you do? Like, how do you deal with that? But I'd be curious on your opinion on that.
God, that is like the mother lode target question for me right this minute. Like that is exactly what I've been chewing on, because it is such a tricky, heartbreaking spot. And I am personally, like just me and my little guy, so fortunate right now and safe. And you know what I mean? And I have enough food and I can pay my rent. And that's like there's almost like guilt and shame about that, because there's so much suffering. And yeah, I mean, I've been chewing on it for months. And I mean, as far as how you let yourself feel, I think that the only thing to do, and probably the thing, even as I'm speaking to you, like that I need to do even more, is to let yourself feel it all, because otherwise you just numb. Like, I don't know about you, but like I go through periods of just being kind of numbed out.
Yeah. Well, and even it's almost subconscious where you're just kind of like, you can't see it. Yeah.
And it's like, and I think there is right now trauma in the collective. There is a lot of suffering in the collective, and there's so much unknown and so much we can't control, like we were speaking about, you know, and so there's like a lot of, you know, some people freeze and some people fight.
Yeah.
And so we're fighting. Hopefully that accomplishes good things and change.
Yeah.
And then I think there's probably quite a few of us who just feel frozen.
There's that like happy bit middle, you know?
Well, I think the only thing to do with your nervous system like that is to let it flush through. You know what I mean? Like, nothing helps. That's where having a big cry helps. That's where, you know, viciously and candidly journaling helps. Or, you know, I mean, with this stuff, it's like, I don't know what to do except for to just keep going with what is. Like what's real in that moment for you.
Yeah, in that very present moment too, just be right now.
Because if you get, I mean, part of the thing that I think is so paralyzing is that for the first time we don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And when you project into the unknown future, you're like,
yeah, we're so used to being like, oh well, okay, and then fall, I'll do this and blah blah, and not that you ever really know what's going to happen, but like it felt a little bit more predictable before.
A little bit of a gauge.
You know what I mean? Like I at least could assume my kid would go to school.
Totally. And we can't assume that, but yeah, okay.
Like that used to be something I could count on with decent security that I can't anymore. And I mean, it's so interesting. Like, I don't think we've done anything like this in recent memory. You know,
in our generation. Yeah,
we don't have the skill set or the tools or the, you know, like this is all new, and we've never faced a virus quite like this before. We've never, it's all changing every day. And I think the only thing you can do when faced with so much change and uncertainty is to just keep bringing yourself present. Keep feeling what you feel. Keep going towards that which you find, like, which brings meaning to you. I was thinking about this a lot the other day. It was like, yes, there's your desires, and then there's what you believe in. I feel like a lot of the new age world pushes, you know, like, oh, manifest your desires and blah blah, and it's all about getting your Lexus, and that's empty if you're not also championing or doing what you really stand for. You know,
and it's satisfying that soul work, right? Like that deeper,
like that deeper work, which is often more satisfying. You know, I mean, I think you need both. I would argue.
Well, I do think that desire propels a lot of that, and it's like, you know, the starter and the ignition. It's like, oh, all right.
Like you did good. Like you need selfish desires. We all have them. If you go full martyr, you're no use to anybody.
Totally. Well, and that's, I kind of think what that quote is like. It's like that full martyr. Yeah, that's not really going to end up saving anyone. And I'm like, how do we feel for us? You know, I think it becomes a lot of that, like, if we can get this solid here, kind of like the oxygen mask theory too, right? Like, you know, if you take care of yourself and get yourself to this like more helpful place, you know, then you can extend to other people and can, but I think we're all kind of experiencing this simultaneously, granted in different, you know, aspects, but you know, I know for me, like, I felt like I hit like with a ton of bricks all of a sudden, and it was just like, whoa, what? Okay, this still isn't as bad as a lot of people, but it's kind of weird and crazy. You know, it's just hard to get my own bearings.
Yeah. I mean, I moved across, like, there's been some major whiplash.
Whiplash, yeah, exactly.
And like that, like, whoa, okay, you know, suddenly we're here. Okay, now I'm not living in New York. Whoa, okay, like,
yeah.
And it's like you got to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know, I push into whatever that is that you feel like you can contribute.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's just hard to find in those moments. Like, you know, I would love your wisdom. Like, what do you do when you're looking for that? Like, is that journaling or meditate? What is it that like helps you find those things? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to do. Is that for watch your actions that light you up? Do you know what I mean? Or
yeah.
And it doesn't, but like the thing I'm thinking of is like there are people who are activists and like this is their time.
And
like,
that's their superpower.
Superpower, like to rage against the institution.
Yeah.
You know, and to find the flaws and like gather the people and like they are spurred forward in this. And then there's going to be people that I think help us digest the after. Like that's one of the things that I was like, I've read some beautiful quote about, you know, society disrupts itself and then the artists come and help us understand what happened.
Makes sense of it all. Yeah.
And so it's like you be gentle with yourself and then you figure out like where is it that you can do your
because I feel like I have a lot of shame in not being the activist or not being, you know, and giving sense to like, well, what is the way that I can help? I know I'm not like, you know, on the forefront and the front lines, but like what can I do that feels good and doesn't feel like, you know, shame and not being that other thing, you know? I think
but I was seeing it just as we were talking, it's like the shame is so intense for all the shoulds of how we should be behaving that it's paralyzing and then you don't do anything. So it's like the shame, like all that stuff is real and it keeps you from speaking out or learning something that you might be uncomfortable to learn or taking action for fear of doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Or like saying the thing and then not having it be politically correct or and that's that bigger thing of letting yourself be messy. Something strong enough that being willing to take some discomfort.
True. Or asking questions or being, you know, feeling vulnerable enough to be like, I don't understand this very well. Like, can you help me understand it better? Or, you know, being, you know, allowing that for yourself. I think that's really important. And it's only in ourselves that we can basically extend ourselves that compassion to be like, it's okay if you aren't, you know, doing all the things right now, like you will find your own way. Like it's okay.
Yeah. And that is the trick, especially with women.
Totally. Permission for that.
So unrelenting, typically, like the shoulds and the expectations and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of beat you into nothing.
Well, I almost feel silly being like, I'll just tell myself it's okay. I'm like, it still doesn't work. I don't know.
And I mean, and that's the other flip is like, it's not okay.
Yeah, that too.
Like, and that's okay. I mean, it's not okay. But like, it's like such a thing of like, oh, how can we make this all? And it's like, you have to also let there be shitty, messy, uncomfortable, scary, unknown. Like that's the hard part. And that's where you go numb because you're trying to just live in one half of the color spectrum.
Well, I think, you know, admitting that like, it's going to be fucked for a while. Like, okay. And for me, I love thinking about it in the context of pain and that, you know, so often we're taught like, oh, don't feel pain. If you have pain, take this pill. If you have this, like, just, it's not supposed to be here. And like, I love shifting on that and being like, no, 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 no. Pain is like our most valuable tool, and the suffering in that, and understand, it teaches us so much, you know, like think about childbirth. Like that's not easy and like not painful. Like that's the most painful thing, but like think of the end result, like holy molars, that's the beauty there. Like there it is. But how do we allow ourselves to sit in the pain and realize we won't be consumed by it, but that we are alchemizing at that very moment of being in that pain? And I think that's, for me, that's kind of where I feel in this moment now too, is like, yeah, this kind of sucks, but like, how do I sit in it and just like be still in it? Because I feel like I'm being pulled to be like, go do this, go do that, go there, you know, pulled in all these directions. And I like, for me, like my strength comes when I can be still and like sit in that, you know, be like gold in the fire, man, you know, just like made true in that space of like being with it. And like you said, you know, it's hard when you're like, how do I say, yeah, this is not okay, and just be all right with that up to there, you know?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. It's wild. It's intense, but you know, I think if we start with, you know, compassion with ourselves, compassion with our circle of friends, compassion, you know, it's this ripple effect that will move outward. Start there. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like my whole life I've watched humans just trying to understand them, you know, letting go more of how they, I feel like a lot of people either approach other humans as, okay, what are they like, and how are they actually motivated, and what are they actually doing, or how should they be?
oh,
you know,
right? And where'd the should come from, you know, like
friends, you know, are like, I had this epiphany once. Actually, with the dude I had a crazy crush on, and we hung out all the time, and like we would get into these kind of like, and I finally was there, and I was like, the difference between us is that he sees the world and is like, it should be like this, love should be like this, relationships should be like this, and I've spent my whole life being like, okay, what is everyone actually doing?
Yeah,
totally. Underneath marriage, like
it's completely this going on down here.
You know, what actually motivates people?
Yeah.
What's underneath? Like, what makes you avoid the thing and do the sketchy thing off to the side and lie?
Yeah.
Like that, and why? And like, how can I have compassion about that?
Yeah.
There's a good chance that everyone's doing the best that they can for whatever the fuck happened to them, you know?
Totally. And these shoulds are really made up and put on it, and
well, there's like, and it doesn't do it. You can't connect with anyone in that space. Like, you should be like this. Well, cool, I'm not.
Yeah. Too bad.
Damn it. Like, yeah, I wish I was too. I wish I was a little taller, you know, like there's a bunch of rap songs about it, but like, yeah, I don't know. I think that the more you just seek to understand, the more empathy that you can have.
Yeah, I love that.
Struggling, complicated animals.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I feel that just like expand in my body, thinking about like, let go of those shoulds, like the compassion will float up, like the understanding will float up. It's there. Gosh, that's a really fascinating concept though, like to think about taking the shoulds off of that. I mean, on so many things, but like, because that's when I look at Instagram, I just get a bunch of shoulds and I'm like, you know.
Yeah, most of us don't need more.
I know, right?
Kasia Urbaniak is one of my favorite teachers. She has this exercise called the Bad Girl Protocol. And it's to map the kind of extremes that are going on inside you.
Yeah.
And so she has you write out like, if I was a good girl, I would, and you like all the stuff, and you get to actually write out all of your shoulds. Like I would, you know, like I'd get up and I'd have my kale juice, and then I'd do my yoga, and then I would feed 14 orphans, and then I would make my child organic breakfast, and then I would, you know, like blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then she has you do, if I were a bad girl, I would
lay in bed all day.
Yeah, and it's at least for me, who's been such a good girl.
Yeah.
It's such a hilarious trip to try and like get creative there.
Yeah, totally.
And what would I do?
What would I do?
Give a fuck at all about what people thought of me or cultural programmings or the law.
Wow. Yeah.
That, like, what would I do? What would I actually do? And it like helps you find some your kind of more real desires.
I love it. I love it.
And it takes the shame off. But more than anything, it's just like you get to see kind of like the forces at work inside you.
That's so cool. What a great tool. I think that's neat. Yeah. Come on, we should all do our little list. Let's do it. Oh, wait, I should.
If I was a bad girl, I'd never do a list about anything again.
Nothing. Yeah, exactly. Wait. No, that's such great. Oh, what a great tool, though. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. This has been a really cool talk about. Just, I think this is a really neat way to look at this. You know, I'm always impressed. Like things, I'm still learning. I'm like,
I was gonna say this is a topic I do not feel masterful in the moment, but I
mean, and we're not, but we're just, we're chewing on it all together, right? Yeah. That's the best. That's the whole point, is like, how do we chew on this? How do we help each other understand ultimately? So I love it. Well, I'm thankful for your help understanding. I know, appreciate you. And thanks so much for being here. I really, really am thankful for this. So muchas gracias. Awesome. All right, we're back here again with Jen Antill, and today's topic is empathy and compassion. This is a big one that's been popping up for me, thinking about, with the pandemic coming along. There is so much crazy stuff going on out there, and sometimes my heart hurts so much it gets paralyzed. Like I don't even know what to do, and I kind of freeze and like, how can I help when the situation feels so big? And one of my favorite quotes, which I brought up kind of like to start this topic, is from Wayne Dyer. And it's that you can't get sick enough to heal one person. And he goes on to say, even like, you can't get sad enough to make one person happy. It's no amount of you bringing your vibration down somewhere is actually truly going to help. And I don't know, me, I'm like a firm believer in the law of attraction. And I believe that, if you bring more positivity to a situation, that's what actually helps. But getting all Chicken Little on this and being like, we're all screwed, like, it really doesn't help. But Jen, today I really want to talk to you about like your thoughts on that, like, and how we can kind of like affect our community or be a part of it or feel like I don't know, we could tangent 7 ways from Sunday here, but like just even feeling part of your community or connecting, how do you find that connection? But what are your thoughts on empathy and compassion?
Oh my goodness. I love your question. I think because I feel like, again, it's such a relevant question, and I hear it in almost everyone that I work with, this question. And I think it's a question that plagues so many of us, but especially women. It's very, very prevalent. Like, I care so deeply. How do I not care too much so that it depletes me, but I also care about the collective and my community? So there's all these pieces, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I found with let's take it to like a more micro level, like me working with clients, for example, like if I am like, I see your suffering, I see your pain, I see you're really in it, and I want to take that away from you, then I'm taking your process from you.
Ooh, that's big.
I'm actually taking your foothold from your process, and I'm saying, I'll do it for you.
That doesn't help anyone.
And then you don't get that sense of, I mean, I want to call it like power. You don't get that sense of coming into that place of finding and coming and doing all that it takes to find that foothold in yourself to step into that.
Yeah.
So if I want to take it from you, I'm actually like, you know what? Your pain makes me uncomfortable, and I don't want to be uncomfortable. So I'm going to take your pain away from you so I get to be comfortable.
Oh, that's huge. Whoa. Whoa. Wow.
Yeah. So this is what I do. Can I be uncomfortable? Can I let myself be uncomfortable watching you be in pain?
Yeah.
Can I let myself be uncomfortable watching you be in pain?
And is that true empathy, right? That's because I think so often, I know I do this too. I'm like, I'll just take it. I'm just going to sweep it out of here. But you're right. Like, how do you really help someone in that empathy? That's amazing. You be uncomfortable in watching them in their pain. Yeah. How do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you do that gracefully?
Yeah, I'm reading like a bunch of Brene Brown books right now. And just because like I love learning about vulnerability and empathy. And I'm like, I love it. Yeah.
Huh?
And she gives this example, I think a really good example is like with your children. Like if you were to sit with Jay and you were to be like, I see you're in pain, right? That's the hardest thing for a mom, right? You're like, fuck, my kid's in pain, right? You're like, oh, I want to take it from you. I want to take it from you.
All the time.
But you're taking this huge opportunity for growth and finding his way in himself. And like, but you're sitting next to him. You're sitting there with him.
You're still supporting, right? Like
supporting you. Like, I love you, buddy. I'm not going to fix it for you, but I love you. I'm here. Like, I'm witnessing you, but I actually can't do this for you.
Well, and this is like we talked about in our other segment where it's like you're helping someone, you're midwifing for them. You're midwifing their pain. You cannot birth their pain for them. But as a midwife, you are witnessing, you're supporting, you're offering this space, this container, but they still have to do the hard work, right? Like,
and what happens if like we raise kids who don't know how to do the hard work? What happens if we raise kids who we're just protecting and we're like, oh, mommy takes that for you. Mommy does that for you. Like, what happens if we do that, right? Then we have kids who don't know how to find their way in the world, who don't know how to go into hard situations and find their own inner strength. That's what happens. I mean, I can definitely, that happened for me in some ways in my childhood. But we take away their ability to be resilient.
Yeah.
That resilient piece starts to lack and it starts to be missing. So it's really taking away this precious opportunity for them to find that place of resilience within themselves.
Totally. Well, and I think too, even now within this pandemic, like I think a lot about that, like how much am I showing my kid or how much am I admitting to him when I'm stressed out and, hitting those moments of like, or even with your friends or anyone, it's like, and even holding space for other people, just thinking about that in this greater picture, it's intense, it's intense, but I think you're right. Like, what a beautiful gift to let someone experience that with your support, but to really, have that process on their own. Like, that's huge. That's huge. I love it.
Yeah. Yes. And like they have it on their own, but you're there, right? It's different than being like, you go figure it out and I'll be here when you're ready. Yeah. You're like, no, I'm actually sitting right here with you. I'm like with you, but I can't do it for you. And I don't want anyone to do it for me. Like when people have done it for me in the past, I feel less sure of myself, right?
Totally.
Wait, you figured that out. You told me that was right. You did that for me. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I feel weird now because I feel like I didn't come to it in a sense of how that kind of that struggle produces that sense of resiliency within us. And that's how we move through the world as adults, right? Like we need that forming. We need that. Yeah. Need to come up against obstacles that form us.
I agree. And I think I love that lesson of like, flip the tables. Like, how did it feel for you, when someone did that for you, and I think that really helps kind of like just switching that, really quick. It does a lot. And then in terms of the macro view, like, and specifically to the pandemic, like how do we kind of approach this world there's a lot of sadness out there? Like, what is your advice in terms of that? Like kind of looking at the things that are hard. I know for me, like, since I don't watch the news and I kind of keep myself in this like fluffy place of like a lot of my colleagues and the people I surround myself with and my mentors were all like very much on this bandwagon of like, this is great. It's going to be amazing. This is good change. Like we're fueling this incredible shift. But I know there are a lot of people out there that are not in that viewpoint, that are very scared or full of fear or, don't have support systems. But like, how do we speak to that, when that's around?
Yeah. I think that for me, I like to look at it like grief to me is like very personal. And if I'm interacting with people who are experiencing grief, then those are the people that I'm getting to actually personally interact with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are people that I'm actually getting to hold and express empathy to. And that in my way is it's in a big way of touching the web of contribution. If I get caught in the like I'm grieving for the world or I'm grieving for all of humanity, I've definitely had phases of my life where that's been true for me. And for me personally, it's been it's not been as helpful for me. Like I get to be with you one-on-one and hold grief for you in an intimate space. That for me feels like it's creating change. And it feels like for me, it's creating a way that I can then have better boundaries in myself around it, rather than being in this pandemic of grief of the world.
Because that can be overwhelming and kind of suck you in.
For me, it is. Yeah, for me, it's not helpful to spend a lot of time there. And it's not about not being aware or not knowing what's going on, but I feel like it's also about tending to your tribe. Like we are only I'm only able to spend so much time with so many people. And so I want to reach that tribe and I want to pour my heart out to that community, whoever that community is, and be like, this is my reach right now. This is what I can do. This is what I'm doing. And it's enough. It's good. It's what feels good for me and my body and my boundaries. And if I do feel grief, like for the collective, like I always want to also not shut that down and like feel it. Like I want to be able to feel that grief and know that like there is grief on more levels because we're also feeling it on a collective level and we're feeling it personally. And we're just in the sphere of like grief and fear and trauma, and we're feeling all of that, so it's heightened, I think, in our own individual lives. But I think the way that we process that has to be very personal.
Totally. And I love what you said though about like being able to be with one-on-one people, you know, like so often I'm like, I'm not organizing a food drive and I haven't done like this and I haven't created, you know, I get kind of caught up in this churn of like, oh, I have to do all these big things. And I love what you say about like our contribution it may seem small, but it's actually way more powerful. Like there's the quality over that quantity. And I sometimes forget, you know, like I think like, oh, it has to be big and huge and affect all these people. And it's like, wow, if you make one change in one person's life and it's really truly effective, like that's so much more powerful, you know? And I think, you know, on this topic, especially of empathy and compassion, like that true connection, like that's what I have realized a lot through this is like these true connections are so valuable. And I find myself sitting at dinner with my family and being like, this is what matters. This, like these little things, and it may be chaotic and messy and, you know, the total shit show, but like, this is what's important to me. This is the connection of all of it, you know, like that's what resonates to me. And I love what you say about just like being able to do that for someone, you know, it really does change them, you know, or like help them and raise their vibration, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's like that change that happens through real intimacy or through real relationship. Like that is so that touches us to like the core of who we are, to the depths of who we are. It's over time. It's like maybe it's long term. It doesn't have to be long term, but there's something about the change that happens through intimacy, I think, that's invaluable. And even if you look at like times before the internet, before social media, right? Like we had a smaller reach. Like we have a huge reach now, but we had a smaller reach. Or even back in times when life was more tribal or village, like we tended to our tribe, we tended to our village. Like these are my people. This is because I'm only one person. Like these are my people. Like this is. So I tend to the people in my sphere and in my community because that's my reach right now. And that feels like it serves me energetically and on a resource level.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that just builds up the collective well, you know, really helps everyone. So I love that. I think that was just beautiful, beautiful wisdom. And I didn't expect to look at it that way. Like I really appreciate this different kind of shift of point of view. And I think that that's so powerful to like really think about it that way. So thank you so much. Love in your wisdom. Excited to have you chat with us on some more topics. So look forward to that. Thank you, Jen. Mwah.
Thanks, Jessie.